Hi, I'm back to sew the second tree, and just as a reminder, this is the Quilters Guild of Ireland home project, which is run in with support, I should say, from the Keep Well campaign and from the Design and Crafts Council of Ireland. So we're asking everyone to make 10.5-inch unfinished patchwork blocks, which we'll use to make quilts to support women's shelters and mental health. So this is the fourth block. This is the second of the tree blocks, and this is the second part of the video on the tree block because it's got quite a bit of sewing in it. So I made the first block or the first half of the tree, the left hand side of the tree, in the previous video, and I'm going to do the right hand tree. So this is the right hand tree foundation. And as I said before, if you're not in Europe or in Ireland and you're making this, please make sure that you print to an A4 size. Otherwise, your measurements will be skewed. Ask me how I know, because I've bought you American patterns and printed them to an A4 size and found that they didn't work. So you do have to be kind of aware of those things when you're using patterns coming from other countries. Sometimes the manufacturers will tell you to adjust your printer setting, which they did in the pattern I had purchased and just didn't read all the instructions, but they don't always. So just be aware of that. So I'm going to turn this right side down, and I'm going to take my tree fabric and position it in that space. So I'm then going to take a pin and pin it towards the bottom and pin it towards I'm going to say the middle top, which is kind of an ambiguous statement, but I want the pin to not be caught in the seam allowance, which I don't think it is. So there it is. And I'm then going to take a postcard and just fold this back. So you could do this after the sewing, do the postcard fold, but in this case, you're probably going to end up wasting a whole lot more fabric than we're already going to waste. So I just find that getting that first seam, if you're doing paper piecing, you want to get an accurate 1/4 inch positioned, and then after that you work slightly differently. But I'm not going to really go into that right now. That's a whole nother series of instructions. So because this is a very simple foundation piece, you've only got 3 pieces. We can keep it pretty simple. The last tree is a little bit more complex, but again, it's not terribly difficult. So there's the tree. It's now centered on the square and the foundation paper. And just to reiterate, I've just used printer paper, nothing fancy. You can use, whoops, this will go this way, and this one, no, this one will go this way, I think. So they're going to go on like this. Because this is quite a wide piece at the top, I'm going to take the extra fabric more towards the top than the bottom. I'm not going to center it. I'm going to skew it a little bit more towards the top. Hopefully I'm right in that. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed anyway. I would recommend pinning this because you're going to turn this back around the other way. You won't necessarily see your fabric that you're sewing, so it's no harm in pinning it. So that's all pinned in place. So I'm now back at the sewing machine. Okay. As I said before, I've set my stitch length to just below 2. If it's 2, that's fine. And so this is the hold your breath moment. Hopefully this worked. Yes, it did. And crease this. And I'll put the other piece in place now. Again, I'm going to skew it slightly, just slightly towards the top because there's more to cover up here. And again, I'll pin this in place. As I said before, try to stay on the line. Funny enough, I find it's actually a little bit easier to stay straight if you're sewing a little bit fast. Now, conversely, it's also easier to make a mistake fast if you're sewing fast, but it just seems to me that when you're trying to draw or sew a straight line, if you're going a wee bit fast, it actually is a little bit easier to control it than if you're going very, very slowly. I think that, oh, sugar, look what I did. I folded a piece of fabric at the bottom. Not a big deal. I'm just going to unpick those few stitches and fold that back down. And I'm going to go, so this is where the mistake was, whoops, mistake was right about there. I'm going to go a few stitches before it. Whoops. And stitch, do a locking stitch there just so it doesn't go anywhere. And trim this. And then we'll fold this back. So that also covered everything. Now, I'm going to do, at the sewing machine, I'll do the trunk and the tree trunk in the skies again. So there's the tree trunk and the 2 sky pieces. So I'm going to match up that top. Whoops. Okay, nothing's going right for me at the moment. That's what happens when you're trying to hurry. When these little tabs get a wee bit hairy, which they can, particularly if you're doing foundation piecing, because they are, you're not cutting the threads close to it, I usually give them a little bit of a haircut. So that's, or find a new one. Anyway, sorry about that. So press that with my finger and then add the other side. and match the top corner. And okay. And as with the other tree, I'm going to press that seam allowance in just to make that tree trunk pop out a wee bit. So that's the tree trunk, which I suppose if you put it that way, looks more like a tree trunk. We'll go back over to the cutting mat here, and I'm going to give this a quick press. And turn it over, and now I'm going to trim my ruler. So just as if you were squaring up a piece of fabric, even though I'm following the lines, I'm also checking to make sure it's lined up on the bottom edge. So I don't want to end up with a block that's a parallelogram or some other queer shape that doesn't really work well. So it's worth trying to be a little bit careful at every step. Okay. So again, I don't really need or want the paper anymore. So I'm going to... Something to be aware of, these edges are possibly a little bit on the bias, this edge here. So it may be inclined to distort or stretch a little, so just be gentle with it. Okay, so that's how the trees will go together now. Okay, so I'll do the last bit of sewing. Bring this back over. And sew the tree trunk and the bottom half of the sky to the second tree. I'm going to line up this top corner, sew a couple stitches, and then make sure everything is lined up on the bottom as well and the edge is lined up, and then I can sew away. And I don't want that seam to flip because I don't really want to have a twisted seam. So I'll make that adjustment when I see it happens. Sometimes it happens and you can't avoid it, but if I see it's about to happen, I usually try to correct it. And then, as I did in the last tree, I'm going to crease it so the seam allowance is going under the tree. So that's the second tree. So that goes next to the first tree, and they should match up pretty well, and they do. So that is... Oops, my apologies, I'm on outside the camera there. So again, I'm going to line up that corner, and I'm then going to match the bottom corner. So I'm holding the bottom corner with my right hand, and I'm going to make sure that the edge lines up all the way down and hold that steady with my left hand as I sew. So again, I'm kind of being aware of my seam allowances. and that is the second block. I am not going to show you the stay stitching again because I've done it already on the other blocks, and this video is really, really long. So I will press this and then I'll do a stay stitch all the way around the edge because there's quite a lot of seams here. I don't want anything to pull apart. And hopefully it will measure 10.5 inches. It should measure 10.5 inches because I followed the instructions and used all the templates. So good luck with that. And remember, when you make your block, contact us at theqgi@gmail.com, or you can contact the Quilters Guild of Ireland on Facebook and let us know you have some blocks to send off, and we'll tell you where to send them. And for every block that's entered, your name will go into a hat for a prize, and we're going to be raffling 50 prizes. So a lot of them are quite small, but some of them are substantial. So and beyond that, this is a really good project. It's going towards a good cause, and it's supporting something really important. And this is an opportunity for us all to connect in this really difficult time. So thank you very much. And I have one more video to do today, and I'll see you again soon.